In the midst of a playoff series that has captured the attention of pretty much every NBA fan across the world, you have the star play and shot making of the wonder kid and best 21-year-old player ever, Luka Doncic, and you have the contrasting fortunes of Paul George, who had quite possibly the worst 3-game playoff stretch from a star player in NBA history. But with all the coverage that these two players have been getting for completely different reasons, Kawhi Leonard has slipped under the radar completely, and it's been a joy to watch him dominate every single game on both ends of the floor, like no other player has done in this playoffs thus far. Or maybe Giannis, but sorry, I haven't really been waking up at 3 a.m. over here to watch the Bucks play the Magic. That's not really something I'm interested in doing. But like I said, the storylines of Paul George and Luka Doncic have overwhelmed this series and the NBA playoffs as a whole. But for the second year in a row, and you could argue 3, with how he was playing in San Antonio prior to getting Zaza'd, Kawhi has cemented himself as the NBA's best playoff performer. And before you get on my case for being reactionary and Luka was outperforming him and he just had one bad game on a bad ankle, I did say Kawhi was the best player in the series after Luka's 40-point triple-double. It's on Twitter if you care to check. But enough about Luka, there's been enough talk about him, and deservedly so, but Leonard's play on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, it's just summed up in 2 words: unbeatable, unstoppable. He can't be beaten on the defensive end of the floor, at least very rarely, and cannot be stopped on the offensive end, that is for sure. Quickly before I get into the video, if you could drop a like right now, that would be much appreciated. These videos do take quite a bit of time to make, and you liking it helps out a lot. Like a lot, just hit that little thumb and everyone wins. What's the most unstoppable move in basketball right now? Is it Giannis Euro-stepping his way to the rim, LeBron bullying his way inside, Harden hitting his defender with the step-back 3? All of these are up there, but has anyone actually seen Kawhi Leonard dribble to his spot, put his defender off balance with a bump, and miss a mid-range shot? The net does not move. He dribbles to his spot, puts his shoulder into the defender's chest, and puts up a shot that just drops into the net. Like, I don't think he misses. And the stats back up the ease and efficiency at which he scores in the mid-range, shooting 73% from the mid-range in the playoffs through the first 5 games. That's 73%. Like 7-3. That's Boban Marjanovic if he was a mid-range jumper. The argument for so long has been until someone can prove otherwise, LeBron is the best player in the NBA. He deserved the respect as the best player in basketball until he started to underperform as opposed to other players reaching new heights. And that's fine, I was in agreement with that, as he made the NBA Finals 8 consecutive times and did his best to will some garbage Cavs teams over the line. But now it's time to pay that exact same respect and use that exact same logic when talking about Kawhi Leonard as the best player in the NBA and the best player in the playoffs. Because coming off a Finals MVP in which he outperformed every star player he faced, from Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, and Ben Simmons, to Giannis in the Bucks, to Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, Kevin Durant was the only player that was performing at Kawhi's level in last year's playoffs, and unfortunately he didn't get the chance to sustain it all the way to the chip like Leonard did. And as a result, Kawhi was clearly the best player league-wide in last year's playoff run that resulted in the Toronto Raptors' first NBA championship. You can then look at his time as a Spur, which seems like it was a decade ago at this stage in time, but it was only a few years ago, and during that time the only players putting up similar offensive production at similar efficiency were LeBron, KD, and Steph, and we saw just how much the Spurs missed him after he got Zaza'd, like I said, and was forced to miss the rest of the playoffs and the rest of the Golden State series. We've now seen 2 extended playoff runs in which he has outperformed his regular season performances and looked the best player in the NBA on both occasions, particularly the best player in every series he's been in. And he's now come up against a historically good Mavs offense and done everything possible on both ends of the floor. And I don't think there's anything to suggest the reigning Finals MVP, reigning champion, isn't the best player in basketball currently, until someone can outperform him in this series, which hasn't happened in his last 3 years in the playoffs, then I'm going to treat him as the NBA's best. If you want an idea as to how good Kawhi has been in this year's playoffs, and why he has been the best player in the league through 5 games, just watch in Game 4 and 5 when he took the assignment of guarding Luka one-on-one. And Luka struggled to do anything at all against him. Yes, Kawhi should have done a better job to stay on Luka during that last play in Game 4, But the reality is Luka hasn't had great numbers. He's actually had terrible numbers in the clutch during the season, and trying to switch would have resulted in a high likelihood of leaving Maxi Kleber open, or a higher likelihood of a miscommunication, statistically a higher percentage shot than a deep step back three from Luka with a few seconds remaining on the clock. Which again, no Luka slander here, one of my favourite players, just stating facts and the reasoning behind them potentially not switching the assignment like everyone was complaining about. If the Clippers are to advance past the first round, which looks likely at this stage in time, now if Luka can pull out two magical performances and the Mavs can get Porzingis back on the court and continue to get great performances from the likes of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Steph Curry, then anything can happen. But with Paul George seemingly back in rhythm and Kawhi still the best player in the world, it's hard to imagine a scenario where they get knocked out in the first round. The question is then, who will be able to outperform Kawhi Leonard over a 7-game series? I'm a huge fan of Nikola Jokic, and Donovan Mitchell has been balling out, but they aren't at the level Kawhi is at currently. And trust me, I'm someone who thinks Jokic is that guy. There's this false narrative that he isn't a superstar, go-to guy, or any of that, which is just completely false. Whether you can win in the NBA with your center as that guy is yet to be seen, but he is definitely someone I would trust to get a bucket in the clutch, and he's proven that in the regular season over 2 years and in the playoffs over 1 year and a few games so far. But the reality is neither of them are going to perform at Leonard's level. It then comes down to LeBron in the Western Conference Finals, if those are the two teams that make it through, which is what most of us expect, let's be honest, but there's still a lot of things that have to happen for that to eventuate. And I'm at the point where I'm expecting Kawhi to outperform LeBron. And this doesn't have to be taken as LeBron disrespect, it's just the fact this man has looked so superior to everyone on the court every playoff series he's played in over the course of 3 seasons, and he's now playing better than he ever has before. I'm not telling you guys something you don't already know, but the reality is the only man that may be able to match the robot that is Kawhi Leonard is LeBron James, and if he can't do it, then who can? Kawhi only turned 29 a couple of months ago, and he has a real shot at taking home another Finals MVP. We might have to start having that conversation sooner rather than later if he keeps performing at a level like this. Now, I'm clearly getting ahead of myself. The Clippers haven't even made it out of the first round, and we still have to see some consistency from everyone else before they can win their first championship. But we know the consistency is going to come from him. It's just if the other players can make some kind of an impact and Paul George can continue to be that second fiddle guy. Overall, it's just interesting to look at the career of Kawhi as a whole because Kawhi is such an interesting player. He didn't start his career as a scoring machine like so many of the greatest players of all time, but he's seemingly become better at one aspect of his game every year. And it's hard to say if any player has ever shown so much growth over the course of a career. I mean, this year he has made a more concerted effort to play make. That pass he made to an open Marcus Morris in the corner, that's a pass that he probably wouldn't have made last year, and certainly not a few years back. But that's just something he's added to his repertoire, and he seems to add something to his repertoire or improve on something every single season, which at 29 years of age, it's scary that he could still add a few more things to his bag. It's funny because this Clippers team is turning into the NBA's primary antagonists. You have Patrick Beverley being a pest as always. I mean, that's his job. That's what he gets paid to do. Marcus Morris stepping on injured ankles. I mean, watch the footage from behind and tell me that isn't deliberate. People are really trying to use the clumsy argument for an elite athlete. Their job is literally to be the opposite of clumsy on the basketball court, and that's what he gets paid millions to do. That's just not a good excuse at all. He changes direction. Anyways, you have Pandemic P, who I've tried defending, but he does more damage to himself in press conferences and on social media than on the actual basketball court. And then you have Kawhi, who does not associate with anything outside of going out and being the best player on the court every night, and the contrasting behaviors of he and some other Clippers players is a good storyline in itself. Not to mention the fact Kawhi is now going for his 3rd Finals MVP on his 3rd team and would be the first player in NBA history to do so. The reality is he could never win a regular season MVP for the rest of his career, and it wouldn't mean anything at all because if you perform well enough to lead your team to a position in which you can then lead your team to a championship, that is the role of a superstar player, and he's looking to do that 2 years in a row, irrespective of a regular season award. As always, if you did enjoy the video, a like and sub would be greatly appreciated. Trying to make around 4 to 5 videos a week at this stage, and I'm always going to have different kinds of content and takes. If you have any suggestions, let me know down below. Other than that, have a good day and I'll catch you later.